Welcome back to A Slice of Health, where health comes alive, with bite-sized health education to keep you moving and become your own health champion, with stories that heal and knowledge that empowers. But before we jump into our topic for today, I want to tell you a story. Sunny, a 35-year-old investment banker who lives in London, has been reading a lot about biohacking as a tool to improve the quality of life, his health, and longevity. He wants to live for as long as possible. There are many things that he wants to do. He hopes to start a family later in his 40s. He wants to visit all the continents of the world. He wants to spend quality time in Antarctica. And if possible, he also wants to try to climb Everest. Sunny is currently very active. He lifts weights. He runs half marathons in his city. And overall, he has a really good diet. But Sunny has been reading that there are a few things that he can do to improve the quality of his life, according to the biohacking system. Some of these include makeshift alternatives to cryotherapy at home, installing magnets in his fingers. Sunny wants to know, what exactly is biohacking? Which part of it should he do? Is it all safe, or should he reconsider? Today we're going to be answering Sunny's questions. What is biohacking? Is this idea of putting magnets in fingers really helpful and safe? And what exactly does Sunny mean as an alternative makeshift solution to cryotherapy? Biohacking is not exactly what the word refers to. Whenever we think of hackers, we think of people that illegally access documents or systems. But biohacking in this context actually refers to a general term that is non-specific, but applies to adjustments that are made to a person's body and lifestyle in the hope of making improvements and also increasing longevity and lifespan. As we see in our modern day, there is a lot of challenges that we face in terms of high blood pressure, cancer, dementia, many challenges with sugar. And the concept of biohacking is to manipulate the body, make adjustments in a lifestyle changes so that we can see longevity. And biohacking on its own actually exists on a spectrum. It's not all extreme. And a few things that are simple and minimal actually exist within the spectrum of biohacking. And as we talk about it today, you might find that you probably also do a few things that can be classified as biohacking. And the question then would be, well, if these are basic lifestyle principles, why are we calling them biohacking? I'm going to classify biohacking into 3 tiers: first, second, and third. This is not actually a structured or well understood specific. However, these 3 different augmentation levels are really just to give you an understanding of where we're at in this concept. The first, I would say, is what we refer to as optimization of health. Now, optimization of health really means looking at our body and saying, what can I do to make things better? And this includes eating well, drinking lots of water, sometimes practicing the principle of fasting. In recent times, fasting itself has become a lot more common. Fasting has become common because people use it as a term within the biohacking framework. Fasting has this perception or ability to reset and sometimes induce certain changes in metabolism, and also sometimes shows an ability to encourage and enable cell repair. There are different kinds of fasting. So there's intermittent fasting, there's water fasting, there's raw fasting. Fasting really does exist on a large spectrum. And in fact, fasting is part of a lot of spiritual practices that really enables people to focus on their mind, to focus on their environment, and to take their mind off food and the thrill that sugar can sometimes bring into the body. Another level where I would say is sort of level one, that's non-invasive and non-intense, would be wearable technology. So wearable technology really helps us understand where we're at with our body. How much sleep have I had recently? Tracking your periods so you're able to notice when there's changes in terms of how your body is responding potentially to hormonal fluctuations. Wearable technology really helping you to reach your fitness and your health goals, and then using that data to make improvements. Sometimes I might be able to do more exercise, and then in sometimes I might not be able to do as much exercise. The mid-level that I would refer to is sort of where people start using things like prescription drugs to improve quality of life. Things like methylphenidate, things like Adderall. Sometimes some people use some of these medications to create certain stimulant effects. Now, these medications are typically used for conditions like ADHD, memantine to treat Alzheimer's disease. However, sometimes these medications can be used by biohackers to create a stimulant effect in the body. Now, these stimulant effects are not necessarily the same reaction and responsivity that people who live with ADHD might have, but the claims from biohackers suggests that these medications can also help improve function. Other things that we normally talk about within sort of this mid-level includes things like cryotherapy. Now, cryotherapy includes exposing oneself to low levels of temperature to be able to stimulate and potentially cause positive effects on the cardiovascular system, the immune system, the endocrine system, and the mental health system. There are lots of different claims about cold water therapy and cryotherapy. Some people feel that because it exposes you as closely to that sensation of death, it can sometimes have a positive stimulant effect on your mind. However, the evidence for it is limited. However, one paper study on cold water swimming that was done in 2020 did suggest that regular graded exposure to cold water could have some positive effects. These, however, need to constantly be studied to fully understand. It is important to note that there are significant risks associated with cold water swimming and exposure to things like cryotherapy on a regular basis, including the cardiac risks associated and the significant risk of hypothermia if not well controlled. Now, the final aspect, which I call the most extreme, includes where we start having implantations, where there's a lot of futurism associated with things. So this is where Sunny was talking about people implanting magnets into their fingers, putting implantables into their ears, doing homegrown cryotherapy, such as walking outside in the snow with bare legs. Now, these are significant extremes, and a lot of these things do not have many or any evidence base for them. And these are extreme diets and manipulations that are trying to change the DNA. Things such as electronic implants into the chest, insertion of blue chip connections into the body, titanium bars that are pierced into the body as well, creating sort of a more sci-fi and technology futurism into the person's body. What we know about these levels of biohacking is that there isn't much evidence that backs these up or recommends that these should be regular practice. Some of these are extreme and controversial, and a lot of times we don't really know what the genetic engineering knowledge is, and what the potential future could be. Although there is a lot of decision and interest in radically manipulating a person's body for this hope of pioneering the new phase of longevity, there is still a lot of question and there is still a lot of caution that is recommended. So, for Sunny, we would recommend that the biohacks that we already know are safe and regularized that we can recommend for him in that sort of level 1 stage include things like 1, getting really good quality sleep like we discussed yesterday. 2, occasional fasting. It's not actually the biohack that we claim it is, but actually, as we have seen for many years, there are different kinds of fasts that can be positive towards the body. And really having a conversation with a nutritionist or a dietitian to see what kind of fasting is best suited can also be beneficial for someone like Sunny. Next would be simple things like sauna bathing, which can also be beneficial. Brain games that can improve cognitive function. If he wanted to use a stimulant, something like caffeine from things like green tea or matcha can be beneficial in controlled doses. And exercise is one of the most ultimate biohacks that a lot of people really do not utilize as much as they ought to. Obviously, he can definitely use things like wearable devices that are not intrusive or invasive. But once you get to the level where you're needing to take prescribed drugs as stimulants, increasing cost of what you're doing for your health, trying to start implanting titanium or metals into your body, then we come into a territory that is not regularized, not regulated, and potentially has some fringe risks as well associated to it. Now, we don't know what these things would be like in 100 years or in 50 years. And of course, there is a potential that it might become part of our lives and part and parcel of our day-to-day existence. But as for today, where we're at with evidence, it suggests that many of these things could be risky, and he really ought to talk to someone who is qualified before he makes any such decision. So there we have it for Sunny. Biohacking can pose some risks if not approached with care and intentionality. Many biohacks can be complex, they can be dangerous. However, simple things that are changes to the lifestyle that produce better quality sleep, better quality health, reduce risk of inflammatory disease and chronic conditions that can be reversible are definitely encouraged. So that's it for me from today. Until I'm back in your ear tomorrow with stories that heal and knowledge that empowers. Bye for now.